episode 4 or 3.5, whatever we want to call this, of the Why Behind the Why podcast. I am Tyrell James.
I am Dr. Nicole Thomas.
And the reason I said 3.5 or 4 is because this is a continuation of the show from 2 weeks ago. So before we were talking about, I got to put it down at the bottom of the screen. I need to have it scrolling across the screen here. But we're doing the metaphysical explanation for attraction, but we're picking up from where we left off 2 weeks ago, though. One of the things that I really loved about this, when you gave me the explanation, it forced me to take accountability. So
Absolutely.
yeah, it made me realize, okay, actually, just in case somebody missed the show last week, can you give just a really quick, brief recap of what you were saying that is the reason for the law of attraction or the
Well,
metaphysical
a
explanation?
quick for attraction. So there are universal laws, and one of the universal laws are is the law of attraction. It has many names. The law of mirroring, reaping and sowing. It has lots and lots of names, but the basic concept is whatever you put out, you get back. And we've learned that a lot in materialistic things, but I don't think it was ever taught. I know it wasn't taught to me. I wasn't taught that that was an energy. What you put out in energy is what you get back in energy. So everything that is happening, you are not subject to your life. You are creating your life. You're not subject to your life. You are creating your life. You are a piece of all that is, God, source, whatever you call um, all that is. You are a piece of that, which is the ultimate creator. And you are a piece of that. So you are a creator and you are creating your own reality. So we're never subject to our lives. We are creating our lives. And how we do that is by the energy that we put out. Everything has to show up outside of us to show us what we're putting out. Things that will bring upon the same energy. Let me make that clear. So, situations, if you're, for example, if you are full of love and joy and peace, and you are putting that energy out, then things, situations come to you that give you that same feeling. If you're full of anger and frustration and loneliness, whatever it may be, you put that out, you sow that into the universe, you sow that energy, and situations have to come to bring upon that same energy.
So when we were talking about it, you were helping me to realize the part that I play in things that were happening to me that I was blaming on somebody else.
Hmm.
And I mean, of course, my thought process and my argument was, well, I don't force somebody to want to have problems with. If I'm a good person to them, like, how did I attract that? And then we kind of went into the energy, and then it went into, well, how were you feeling? How did it make you feel when the person did this, when the person said this? Um, and then even the feelings that came beforehand, it was like, okay, like once I started thinking about that, and if we're thinking about it in terms of energy, and we're thinking about energy attracting something, what was going on in my life at the time that was completely independent of the person I was having the issue with. Whatever was going on in my life at the time was the energy that attracted that person. So
Yeah,
I
it's almost like a magnet.
right, right. Hmm.
It's almost like having a magnet. And if you give the magnet a name, so any magnet is going to pull another magnet to it, right?
Hmm.
Like attracts like. So if you have a magnet called hate,
Hmm.
another the other piece of magnet, another magnet that is called hate is going you're going to attract that magnet. because they're both magnets, that they both have the same energy. So you're just pulling that energy to yourself.
Mm-hmm.
And it comes in forms of situations and things and people. And you can look at them and say, oh, I don't like the way they act. I don't like the way, and it may be different behavior, but same energy.
Okay. Now, one of the things that I mentioned before we ended the last podcast that we didn't really get a chance to get into, but I know you definitely wanted to address it when I brought it up, was what about the child who is molested or the person who is raped? What about them? What type of energy was it inside of them that attracted that to them?
I'm glad you asked that question, and I've had the pleasure of having the best teacher teach about that, which is my master teacher, Dr. Anu, and that's always the question. So it's going to be like a twofold question, a twofold answer. I'm sorry. So number one, energy is fluent. So when you have a child, you take two people flowing two different energies, or they're flowing energies. They come together and they create a child. That energy creates that child. So now you have mom's energy and dad's energy, and that comes together to create this child that now has both mom and dad's energy. Okay, so energy is passed down through the womb, and it's that was amazing when I learned that, because I never thought that. We always talk about, and it's scientifically proven. It's scientifically proven that happens. Well, scientifically proven genetics. They talk about genetics all the time, but the spiritual aspect of it is that you got energy that passes down to the womb. So a lot of times we will have situations that we don't even realize we have, and we don't know where it came from. When it was passed down, it was given to us. That's the first thing. But the the way that I was taught, and I think it's the best way that I understood that. So, and I don't, I'll make it general. So, if you have parents, and say it's your mom, and your mom is really, really fearful of something happening to you, you know, don't go out after a certain time. People are crazy. Somebody can snatch you, grab you, and do anything to you. And if she says that to you and puts that into your head, that's what you're going to think. So every time you go out, you're fearful of something happening to you. Or she could have passed that down in the room, say something happened to her, and she's really fearful. And that energy gets passed down in the room. So
Okay.
curses, they call it generational, they call it genetics, we call it, now we're talking about the energy. So you're vibrating energy out the womb.
Mm-hmm. Okay.
But even as a child, our parents, and they do it in the name of protection and love, but a lot of times it causes us fear. It causes us to be fearful. And if you have fear within yourself that something is going to happen to you, then you can attract that energy.
When you are aware of the energy that you brought in, it's like taking accountability, right?
Mm-hmm.
So I'm accountable for my energy, but in that instance, when the energy is being passed down, that child is not responsible for that energy. So that you
No,
can't
it's
hold
not
that child.
responsible. No, and you don't. That's we're not talking about accountability when we're talking about just energy passed down in the womb. That's a different thing. So to much is given, much is required. So when
Okay.
you know something, you're responsible for it, right?
Mm-hmm.
So so even most people don't know this information. So a lot of times we're almost um, taught, underlined that life is happening to us, right?
Mm-hmm.
Even growing up, and I grew up, Christian, it's, God's going to fix it. You sit and let God fix it. You know what I mean? Life is happening to you. Oh, this is happening. I've even heard, well, God must not be happy with me, or, um, you know, it's almost like we're taught that life is happening to us versus we're the creators of life.
Mm-hmm.
We're creating our own life. We can't create a life for anybody else, but we are manifesting our own life. We're creating our own reality. We really creating our own reality. So regardless if you're conscious of it or unconscious of it, you're still doing it.
Okay.
So now what happens is this information is so beautiful because when you take accountability and responsibility, then that means I'm acknowledging what I'm doing. How do you change something that you won't acknowledge?
Mm-hmm.
Accountability is for a person that is willing to do the work to change it. I don't like what I'm creating. I don't like how my life is looking. I don't like what's happening. I want to change it. That means you have to acknowledge how you feel, your behavior, what you're doing, what you're choosing. You have to take responsibility so that then you can just change it. And there's no judgment, there's no right or wrong. It's just, are you happy with what you're creating, or are you not happy with what you're creating?
So, how do you change that energy? How do you first become aware of the energy and then change it?
A lot of times, what I've noticed, even with myself, I'll talk about myself, but even with a lot of my clients, um, a lot of times we cut ourselves off from our emotions. It happens more than not, because emotions a lot of times hurt if we are picking things that aren't pleasant, or if we're sticking things out, or we're doing things that we really don't want to do. So how do we get through life? How do we stomach what we're dealing with? We shut ourselves off from our emotions. But the problem is when you shut yourself off from your emotions, then you can't monitor um, what you feel about what you're doing and what you're picking. And they really are your guidance systems. Your emotions, how you feel, those are your guidance system. It lets you know if what you're doing is in line with your purpose. When you pick something and it makes you feel joy from your soul, you're right where you're supposed to be. You're doing what you're supposed to be doing. But if you're doing something and it doesn't feel good, I mean, it makes you, it doesn't feel good at all, then you have to give that's an energy too. And you're putting out that energy.
Mhm.
So you want to be in touch with how you feel. That's number one. You want to pay attention to how you feel. Am I enjoying what I'm picking? Not temporary enjoyment. I'm talking about, I mean, that real joy. I'm not talking about you pick something and it feels good for that moment, and then as soon as you get finished, it don't feel good no more. you know, then you beat yourself up because why did I do that? No, I shouldn't do that. That wasn't good for me, and all that. That's not what I'm talking about. I'm talking about that thing that you pick that makes everything in your soul feels good. It really brings upon a feeling of joy and peace. Um, so the first thing is to really pay attention to how we feel, what we're choosing. Do I like what I'm doing? Do I like what I'm choosing? Do I like what I'm participating in? And ask yourself some really, really hard questions, and get back in tune to you. instead of doing what everybody's telling you you should do. Well, you should do it like this, and you should act like this, and you should look like this. Get in touch with you. Ask yourself, do I like what I'm doing? Do I like what I'm participating in? Do I like how I'm presenting myself? Get in touch with you. That's number one. Number two is tell yourself a new story. Retraining the brain is huge. Mental work is the most important work, one of the most important things that you ever do. So a belief is nothing more than something you tell yourself over and over and over and over again. So it's time to tell yourself a new story. So if you're singing the story of, oh, life is just, I just got to do what I got to do, then that's the life you're going to live. But tell yourself the story that you want to live. I'm full of joy, I'm full of peace. And then think of those things that bring upon that feeling. Go take yourself to a place, and if you don't have any good feelings, create one. What would feel good? If I wanted to do something, if there was something that I wanted to do, and what would it be? What would I choose to bring upon peace, or that was a really good feeling? So for some, it might be sitting by the ocean on a beach somewhere and really sit and feel what that would really feel like. So it's time to create the feelings you want to feel, the feeling that you want to manifest outside of yourself. So you take control over your thoughts. You stop letting your thoughts take control over you, which means now you have to monitor your thoughts. You have to care enough about how you feel. And then you have to choose things that might not be so popular to anybody else, but it doesn't matter what anybody else likes. It's about you, what you like, what brings you joy, peace, happiness, whatever you want to manifest. Those emotions outside of you, you need to feel them on the inside of you first.
Okay. So I want to kind of switch gears a little bit. I want to talk about relationships. So,
Okay.
the woman or the man that keeps running into having, being in a relationship with somebody who keeps letting them down, there's a pattern. They keep running into cheaters, or they keep running into people who don't have ambition, don't want to do anything with their lives, but there just seems to be a pattern. There's a person who is, I tell you what, let's take the person who is extremely faithful, just does not cheat. But they keep getting cheated on. They keep coming across people that are cheating on them. What type of energy could they possibly have that is causing them to bring that?
Oh, I can give you personal experience. I got that one. I can talk about that personal. So very interesting. I remember at the beginning of this particular journey, and I remember going to my mentor, and I said, I don't understand, because by this time I was learning the laws of the universe. I was learning how this thing works, and I said, I don't understand. I keep, my daughter's father was, this. My husband at the time, cheater, liar. I'm none of those things. Like, how am I manifesting that? How am I manifesting that? Because I'm not that. And she says, I never forget what she said to me. She said, but what was the energy that you guys shared? It's not an action. You can't look at the action. You have to look at the energy of why you're doing what you're doing. So it's not the fact that they're lying and cheating and, manipulative. It's why are they lying, cheating, and manipulative? Okay. So we shared a like energy, and the like energy was neither one of us loved ourselves. Okay. Neither one of us loved ourselves. So theirs manifested in a way that caused them to feel like they needed to lie, cheat, be, tell story, be manipulative, whatever. Mine manifested in a way that I tried to do everything right, miss perfect, control freak, had to have it this way. Everything had to be what I perceived to be perfect. I'm taking care of everybody. I'm trying to prove myself. You know what I mean? So it looked very different, but it was the same energy. So we acted it out different, but the root cause of it was the same thing. The why we were doing what we were doing was the same. The why behind the why. Why are we doing what we're doing?
Okay. I'm trying to come up with different scenarios that seem to affect people, things that we see on a pretty regular basis.
Mm-hmm.
And of course, I know that that's a big one, and I know a lot of people who are in relationships, and I've really only heard women ask this question. Not saying that men have, and I'm sure men have, but I have heard women say, why do I keep picking these men who are cheating on me? Like, what is it about me? And they're blaming themselves. But what you're saying is, instead of blaming yourself, you need to recognize that energy.
Right. You have to go in and find out how it makes you feel. So, for example, I'll never forget this time, and this is when I was married. Um, my my husband at the time went out of town, and I was going somewhere with my girlfriends. We was going to I thought it was a picnic, a cookout, but it turns out it was one of her good friends was opening up the community farm. So I'm going with now. It's nothing. It wasn't anything new for me to go with my girlfriend. For us to hang out here and there. So this particular time, you know, my husband is calling me and he's acting real, crazy. And I was like, now by this time I'm mad. I didn't let myself get mad. I'm mad. I'm steaming. Um, and then it hit me because he's acting like he doesn't trust me, like he's acting like I'm doing something I'm not supposed to do. Where's this coming from? What is going on? So once I took control and said, okay, let me do what we call math. We call it math. Let me do my math. How is he making me feel? Get to the feelings. That's why the feelings are so important. How is he making me feel? Well, he's making me feel like he doesn't trust me. Where in my life don't I trust myself? And when I came up with the answer of where I wasn't trusting myself and I fixed that, he can't bring me that anymore.
Okay. So when you fixed it, what happened?
I didn't have that issue went away.
Okay.
That I didn't attract that issue, that feeling anymore because I wasn't putting out that feeling anymore. But I had to go in and do my work.
Okay, so you said that the energy that you both shared was you both didn't love yourselves.
Mm-hmm.
Did you begin to love yourself while you were still married to him?
That's when it started. Yes,
Okay.
that process began when I was married.
And did you? Look, I'm all in your personal business, but
No, it's fine.
you started this, so
it's fine. It's fine.
So when you started loving yourself, is that when you decided to end the marriage?
Eventually, that's so. Let's talk about energy. Let's talk about it because it makes sense in energy.
Mm-hmm.
So if we both like attracts like, if we both were sharing the same energy, right?
Mm-hmm.
And that's what put us together. The minute I decided that I wanted something different and I wanted to change in my energy, I wanted to start loving myself. Now I'm teaching myself how to love me. and I'm going to vibrate at a different frequency at that. My energy is going to change. So once that happens, we're no longer a match. So, I always thought in the Christian faith, they used to say you got to be equally yoked. It'll be equally yoked. And back in the day, I used to think that meant we both had to share the same religion. But what was that really saying? It was saying that you share the same energy. So the minute I shifted and I changed and I decided to evolve, we now have different energies. We're on two different frequencies. So we can't even understand each other. He's on 93.9 and I'm on 100, yeah, a different radio station.
Right.
We're not listening to we can't hear each other.
So then you ended it?
Yeah, because either one or two things happen. Either that person is going to vibrate out your life, or the vibration, or they're going to have to come up or meet you. I don't want to say come up because it makes it seem like something is better than another. We all get to choose these things, but they have to switch their vibration. They have to meet your vibration. And if they don't meet your vibration, then everything is y'all are on two different energies. Like is no longer attracting light.
Okay. So what about physical abuse? What about the person getting abused? What type of energy could they possibly have? And then after that, I want to talk about psychological abuse too, because I had an aunt tell me one time. She said, I've been physically abused and I've been psychologically abused. She said, and the psychological abuse was way worse than the physical abuse, because with the psychological abuse, you have no control. So, sorry. So I want to know, what is the energy that person who is getting physically abused, what type of energy is it that they have that is attracting that physical abuse? And then I have the same question for the person who is attracting the psychological abuse.
Well, you got to remember, it's not the action. It's the why we do what we do. Right. It's the why we do what we do. So the action is, it manifests itself in physical abuse, but it's the root cause of why that person feels like they have to do what they're doing and why they're doing what they're doing. So that person, those two people may share that energy of why. So for example, if I don't feel like I have any value, I don't feel worthy of having a good life, or I don't feel worthy, I don't feel valuable. And then I attract somebody that doesn't feel valuable or worthy. We come together and we have this relationship. Okay? We're sharing the same energy. Now, how mine might play out is I could be shy, or not even shy, because I could be closed in and not have a high self-esteem. There we go. And may deal with anything because I don't feel like I'm worth much, right? That other person may feel like, oh, I gotta rule and I gotta beat this person up to feel valuable.
Okay.
So they share the same root cause. They're playing it out. They're manifesting it different. The way they are acting it out is different, but they're sharing the same root cause of it. So you can't look at the behavior. You gotta look at the emotion, the feeling of why.
Right.
The behavior can play out in any way, shape, or form. But why are you doing what you're doing?
So the reason I was being specific is for anybody who may be listening, where maybe they don't aren't being cheated on, but they are being abused. And maybe the way they heard the cheating, the way you described that, maybe they didn't hear that the way they needed to hear it when we made it specific to abuse. So that's why I wanted to like get into these more specific things, because the answer pretty much is the same. The answer is the same. Again, overlooking the action, not overlooking the action to the point of not holding the person accountable. You still hold the person accountable for
Absolutely.
the action,
Absolutely.
but as far as the energy that's there, you have to overlook that action and focus more so on the energy.
Well,
Okay.
it tells you the why. It gives you the why they're doing what they're doing. But we can change the energy by not choosing it. I mean, it's still a choice. We get to choose to stay there or not stay there. We can get really, really specific. I remember being married, and there were incidents where my ex-husband, he would just come home and sit in a chair, and he didn't want to talk much. He didn't want to interact a whole lot. It was like me and the kids. Um, and there were several things that was happening. I never forget, my parents went home, and my aunt told him to give me this paper, this packet of papers, and I get it, and it spelt out emotional abuse. um, and I'm going through emotional abuse, and almost everyone on there I could identify with. Like, and I'm boohoo crying right at this point. I'm boohoo because I'm like, wow, I didn't know what this was. I didn't know that it was emotional abuse. I did not know somebody withholding their conversation, withholding their love, was emotional abuse. It was like textbook emotional abuse.
Mm-hmm.
And I didn't realize it. I know it didn't feel good, but it wasn't as blatant as somebody putting their hands on you or calling you out your name. It wasn't those things that are that blatant, but it was that underlying thing of, why don't they want to connect with me? Why don't they want to interact with me? Holding their love, holding their time, holding their attention, which is emotional abuse. And I didn't realize it at the time. But when you start learning to love yourself, when you start going in and doing the work and understanding your value and understanding that you were born value, you was born valuable, you're a piece of God, you were born valuable. And you start learning to love yourself, and you start choosing things that make yourself happy instead of choosing things to make somebody else happy, or be a people pleaser, or doing something that somebody else wants you to do. And you start picking things that you want to do, and you start following the beat of your own heartbeat, which is going to frustrate a lot of people around you when you was doing everything to please them at first.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, it can turn your world upside down when you have surrounded yourself with people that expect you to do just what they want, and to not care about yourself, not choose you.
Okay.
But in order to heal and in order to grow, you have to learn how to choose you. Choose you first.
Mm-hmm. Okay. So I want to switch gears one more time, because
Okay.
it's going to be a bit of a shorter show than what we normally do. We're going to be wrapping up soon. So, but I do want to switch gears one more time. I want to end on a brighter note. So, you know how you see the person who it seems like the sun is always shining on them. Everything goes in their favor. Um, Everything they touch turns to gold, right? So oftentimes people are looking at that person and they become envious of that person. So my question now is not so much about the person where it looks like the sun is always shining on them, not the energy that they have, but how does the person who's looking at that person through envious eyes, how do they now get that same energy? Because
Know that.
I think that I'm sorry. I think that a lot of people are focused on action. So they see a person doing a certain thing and they say, well, I got to do it that way. I got to do
Right.
it this way. I got to do it that way. And then oftentimes it doesn't work. You know what? Perfect example. You will have somebody that will do a certain diet or take diet pills or do something, whatever, and then they drop all of this weight. And then somebody says, oh, how did you do that? I want to do it too. And then they do the same thing and they don't get the same results. So I mean, so what type of energy is it that that person needs to adopt so that they can, number one, stop focusing so much on the action and then start focusing more on the energy that they're attracting?
That is a great question. Um, the first thing is that to see someone be successful and to manifest that, you mentioned everything they touch turns to gold. It just seems like the sun is one of them. The first thing is to know if they can do it, you can do it. If they can do it, you can do it. So, the one thing that I'll do, if that's a good example, that's just that fuels me, because if they can do it, it's not out of my reach. I can do it. You know what I mean?
Mhm.
That's number one, because it all exists. So it shows me that it exists. And that's a beautiful thing. So if you meet somebody and they're a millionaire, that shows you that that really is possible, right?
Mhm.
I know somebody who's a millionaire. It's possible. I can have it too. It's a reachable, tangible thing. I see it. It's in front of me. So it's beautiful to have those examples. So instead of looking at it through the eyes or the lens of envy, look at it through the eyes of, that lets me know it's possible. That means I can do it too. That's number one. But you mentioned something really good. You might not, it might not be meant for you to do it the way that they do it, because that might not be your thing.
Mhm.
So that's when it's good to get in touch with you and who you are, and ask yourself those questions of, what do I like to do? So so manifesting is one of the things that I'm huge on, retraining the brain. But everything starts within. What you feel within. As a man thinketh in his heart, so is he. As a man thinketh in his heart, so is he. So whatever you believe it to be, it will be. Whatever you know it to be. Let's go beyond belief, because I was taught that belief is the lowest form. Whatever you know it to be, it will be. So if you know it to be where this world is full of lack, and only certain people are benefited enough to have wealth, or benefited enough to have this or that, then that's what it is. But if you understand that, I don't really know how to do it, but I know that I am worthy of wealth also. And you say to yourself, you know what? I'm worthy of wealth. I'm worthy of wealth. And you say it until you know it. But again, a belief is nothing more than what you tell yourself over and over again. So my process has been, I usually will turn it into a belief first. I'll tell it to myself over and over and over again until I believe it. But then once you get to the belief, then you come to the knowing.
Mhm.
You come to the knowing. I know that to be true. I know that am able to manifest anything that I want. I'm worthy enough to manifest that. I know that I can have anything I put my mind to, and without the doubt of it. So it's retraining the brain. It's retraining, and then being able to milk those moments where you see it possible. So I'll give you an example. Um, when I was looking for a home, and you remember this, we even talked about this before I moved in, when we was talking about manifestations, right?
Mhm.
Um, I was looking, and my affirmation for that, I'm really big on affirmations. So I would tell anybody, write down your affirmations and make sure it is, you always talk about what you want, not what you don't want. You always talk about what you want. And I used to say that, oh, everything just, um, the universe just provides for me. Now, given for those people that don't understand when I say that God is all things, God is the universe, God is you, God is me, God is all things, God is everything. That's what the Bible says. God is all things. So when I say that, the universe provides, just provides, it opens up and it provides everything I want and need. That was my affirmation. That was one of my affirmations. How did that manifest? I manifest a home that was on that sat on a well, and now I have well water. The universe opens up and just supplies me with all my needs and my wants. I have fruit trees on the property that provides nice fresh fruit, several fruit trees. So it manifested in a practical way. So once you start, I would say sit down and think about what it is that you really, really want to manifest and say it till you believe it. Say it till you know it.
Mm-hmm.
Put the new program in and take the time out and feel it. Sometimes you might not know how to get there. The how is not important. I leave that to God. I leave that to source, all that is, to figure out how to bring it to me. I know what I want to feel. Okay, I want to be wealthy. I don't know how to get there. I want to be wealthy. So it's my job to go in and know that I'm wealth, number one. I'm valuable. It starts within. I am worthy. I'm worthy of it.
Mm-hmm.
I am value. So the first thing is to know that you are worthy and that you are the value that you seek. You are the value that you seek. And once you realize that, then you can attract value, things that you consider valuable. It all starts within. If you want love, be the love that you seek. Love on yourself. Acknowledge yourself. Learn what you love about you. Tell yourself how beautiful you are, how worthy you are,
And
how great you are.
all of that is considered doing the work too, right?
That's doing the work. And it
Okay.
doesn't happen overnight. It
Right.
does not happen it does not happen overnight. It is a constant thing. If you've been telling yourself a different story your whole life, it's not going to happen overnight. You keep putting a new program in until it takes.
Mm-hmm. Okay. All right. I think we've covered it. Um, I think that I have learned, especially 2 weeks ago when we first started this conversation, I was like, wow, and having to take accountability for what other people are doing is what was the hard part for me until I kept hearing you say it's not about the action. It's not about the action. So once you're able to get past that, you're able to take accountability for the energy that you're bringing to you. So I really think that this one was needed. Um, boy, I had so many other questions that you answered simply by saying, stop looking at the action. So I think that's the biggest takeaway here, to stop looking at the action and focus on the energy.
And by focusing on the energy, because a lot of people will, get stuck there. Don't get stuck there.
Mhm.
Find the emotion. Find, how do you feel? What does it make you feel like?
Right.
Go to the feeling. Find the feeling. How
Mhm.
does it make you feel? And go past those surface feelings. Go past
Mhm.
the surface. Do the hard work. A lot of times we don't want to feel that feeling. We don't want to feel that, oh, I don't feel like I'm worthy of love. We don't want to say that. You know what I mean? A lot of times we don't want to tell ourselves the truth. Self-deceit is the biggest thing, but we got to get there in order to fix it. So it's
Mhm.
not a bad thing. It's a bad thing. Well, if you want to fix it, it's a bad thing if you can't look at it, if you can't acknowledge it.
Right.
So
Mhm.
go in and acknowledge how you really truly feel. Be honest with yourself. Be honest with yourself. And a lot of times, a lot of people can't do this work on their own.
Right.
This is hard work. This is not easy work.
Mm-hmm.
So whether it's whether you're inboxing me or I'm connected to a network of life coaches that can help you do the work, do your work. If you can't do it yourself, get help, because this is not the easiest work to do. A lot of times we'll give ourselves out.
Mm-hmm. Okay, so all right, we're going to go ahead and close now. But before we do, I want just we got to remember for anybody, especially this type of because we cover some pretty heavy things here. So for anybody that wants to do that work or has more questions, whatever, want them to be able to get in contact with you. So just go ahead, let them know how they can find you.
You can reach me on Facebook at dot Nicole Thomas, or you can reach me on Instagram at DOCT Divine. DOCT Divine on Instagram.
Okay. All right. And I'm a life coach as well, but go to the doctor. Don't come to me right now. You know what? That sounded insensitive coming out. I'm sorry. No, you can't come to me. I take back what I said. I'm sorry. I didn't mean for it to come across as insensitive. So I wasn't gonna put my information out there, but now that I said something that sounded to me as insensitive, now I'm going to put my information out there. So if you do want to get in contact with me, I am the Tyrell Show on Facebook. And the Tyrell is one word and then show. And on Instagram, just Relic Media, RELLIC_media. Yes, that's the media page. But if you need some help with anything, as far as needing coaching, life coaching, then you can hit me up there. It's all good. So, but we just want to thank you all for joining us. Tune in 2 weeks where we're going to talk about the metaphysical explanation for sex. I haven't run that past you yet. I've decided to just throw that at you right now. We're going to talk about sex in 2 weeks and the metaphysical explanation for sex. So
it's interesting. I like it. Let's do it. Let's do it. Let's go.
Yes, definitely.
You all like surprising me.
Yeah, I do.
With these things.
I do. All right, so we thank you all again for joining us, and we will see you in 2 weeks. Oh, what's my little tagline? What do I say when we have to leave? Don't be afraid to ask why, or something like that. Yeah, don't be afraid to ask why. We'll see y'all next time.